This is The Big Breakdown, a long look back at some of the biggest stories we're covering for you at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
It was July 18th of 2014. It was a hot summer Friday in Tallahassee, and for most people, it was just another morning. For Dan Markel, a brilliant Florida state law professor, it was supposed to be a turning point. A day when his divorce attorney, Stephen Webster, would file what he's described as damning paperwork against Wendi Adelson. The kind of filing that could change the course of a custody battle and maybe even the rest of Dan's life. Big day. Lots of planning for this. Lots of debate going back and forth. Lots of getting ready to present your case and prepare for the fallout that could very likely happen when the information you bring to someone else is not exactly going to make them happy. And he knew Wendi, he knew Donna, he knew the whole family. He wasn't unfamiliar with their narcissistic lifestyle and their lack of ability to process, comprehend, and then act on information in a healthy sort of way. Just a skill set that he knows they don't have. But when you are dealing with someone who don't have that sort of skill set, then you have to go to the law. Then you have to go to your attorneys. Because if they're not going to play by just the basic rules of life or human decency or what's best for the child, you have to get legally involved. So that's what he did. After all those months, all those instances where the kids are coming back and they're telling dad about how grandma hates you and you're taking away their sunshine. And now we know on the back end of that, Donna is sitting there plotting, dressing the kids up in Hitler youth uniforms. He was going into a firestorm. He knew that. What he didn't know is that before noon, he would be dead. Dan was gunned down in his own driveway. 2 bullets to the head, fired point blank range. And to Stephen Webster, the timing has never been a coincidence. He believes that what was about to land in court that day may well have been the final trigger for the Adelson family to act. Pardon the pun. Dan and Wendi's divorce had been finalized in 2013, but the fighting just did not stop. And we know more of why. Donna's meddling, Wendi not being able to say no to her mom or even recognizing what a monster she is. Or could it be even worse? That's the question we're trying to figure out the answer to. Keep in mind, Wendi has not been charged with anything. She is innocent. At least as of right now. When the fighting did not stop, it got worse. At the heart of the battle were 2 young sons. Wendi wanted to relocate the boys to South Florida, where she'd be closer to her parents, Donna and Harvey, and her brother, Charlie. And Dan refused. His career was rooted in Florida State. His life was in Tallahassee. And he believed uprooting the children would sever his bond with them. Plus, you're uprooting the children. If you're going to uproot the children, it should be for something that's going to benefit the children, not the grandmother. Her consideration shouldn't even be in this conversation, yet they are, because Donna inserted herself into this situation. As if it was completely normal for a grandmother to be dictating any of this stuff between Wendi and Dan Markel. And we now know just how much Wendi was being egged on by her mother. The disputes, they grew vicious. Court records show years of back and forth over visitation schedules, parenting agreements, and financial obligations. By the summer of 2014, Webster says Dan was preparing to strike back in a way that would finally put Wendi on the defensive. Webster has described the paperwork as damning. While he has not laid out the full text publicly, the contours are clear from the surrounding record and his own interview on Surviving the Survivor podcast. The filings allegedly included motions to restrict Wendy's custody or visitation, pointing to evidence that she was not following court orders, allegedly, interfering with Dan's parenting time, and manipulating schedules. Again, these are all the allegations. By filing for sanctions or restrictions, Dan could put her credibility before the court and shift the balance in his favor. Well, they didn't like that. There were also contempt claims. Webster suggested that they were prepared to show that Wendi had allegedly violated prior parenting orders. Judges don't take kindly to repeated defiance, and contempt findings can directly reduce a parent's custody share. The paperwork may also have gone after financial exposure. Wendi was living largely on the support of her family. By drawing into that open, or drawing that into the open, the filings would allegedly highlight the Adelsons' deep involvement, the family, not just in paying her bills, but in driving the custody fight. That meant exposing Donna's control and Charlie's behind-the-scene role. And perhaps most damaging of all, Webster implied the findings included evidence painting Wendi as unstable or manipulative. Shocker, I know. In custody battles, a parent's conduct is under a microscope. These sort of findings could have brought that conduct into the harsh light of a courtroom record. And for Dan, this wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. He wanted to protect his relationship with his children and make sure the court saw what he believed was happening behind the scenes. That is the most important thing he was doing. He was looking out for his kids. And Donna, Wendi, Charlie, they're looking out for themselves. What did they want? What would make them feel good in that moment? Notice the utter lack of seeming concern for the hellscape that they created for their children, grandchildren, nephews to live in by their actions. We're all waving the flag of, we're doing it for the kids. It's the best thing for the... Everything actually seems to only benefit us, but we're doing it. And our hate for Dan, because we have to be vitriolic and right. Well, wave this flag, it's for the kids. Well, what are you doing for the kids? Well, we're taking them out of their schools and their friends and away from their family that love them and moving them down here to live near Donna and Charlie and his friends from across the tracks. How is that better than the stable life they're leading up there? Ask Donna. Oh! I'm doing what I think is best. Let's put the kids in a Nazi uniform. Show Daddy what's up. Unstable, broken brains across the freaking board in the Adelson family. For Wendi and her family, the implications were devastating. If the judge accepted any of Webster's arguments, it could have meant less custody, tighter restrictions, or even formal sanctions. And they deserved it. It was just out of nowhere, we don't like Wendy's parents. No, they certainly instigated this happening, and a responsible parent doesn't sit on the sideline and go, oh, you just tell my children whatever you feel like telling them, you neurotic bitch. No. He stood up because he gave a damn about what was happening with those kids. Not so much the Adelsons, though. And for the Adelsons, whose obsession was keeping the boys close in Miami, it would have meant a permanent loss of control. Dan dropped his children at daycare that morning. He drove home unaware that a rented Toyota Prius was following him. As he pulled into his driveway, Sigfrido Garcia and Luis Rivera ambushed him. 2 shots to the head. Back at Webster's office, the filing sat ready. We have everything prepared to file, Webster recalled. And that's the day they killed him. To him, this was unmistakable timing. This wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It was coordination. The paperwork represented an existential threat to Wendi's custody case and to Donna and Charlie's ability to control their grandchildren and Wendi. By eliminating Dan, the Adelsons eliminated the filings. In hindsight, with Donna and Charlie Adelson both convicted in the murder plot, the motive becomes chillingly clear. Custody leverage was at stake. The filings allegedly threatened to erode Wendi's custody rights. If she lost ground, the Adelsons lost access. Exposure of family interference was on the line. By pulling their financial and emotional manipulation into the public record, the filings could have embarrassed and implicated Donna and Charlie in ways they could not afford. And most of all, there was the fear of permanent loss of control. If Dan gained the upper hand, the dream of relocating the boys to Miami would be gone forever. The Adelsons had already joked, or not so joked, about hiring a hitman. Wendi herself admitted to police she'd once told Charlie had once told her that he'd buy her a hitman. It's cheaper than, or buy her a TV rather than getting a hitman because it was cheaper. By July 2014, those jokes were no longer jokes. And keep this little nugget in mind. You don't typically find criminal action. Well, you do sometimes. But it's not super. You don't find this sort of criminal action in a custody hearing. You just don't. The idea that you're going to somehow dig up any information on Wendi or on Donna and Charlie in this custody hearing, slim to nil. But if you keep digging, and if they were to dig, if they were to investigate, if they were to get into discovery further, which this could have gone because the Adelsons seemed to want to fight, but they're too stupid to realize that their devices might be looked at, which could very easily happen in a case like this. Take murder out of it. Say he's still alive. They could have just as easily found the plot to kill Dan had he survived, and all these people would have their names stapled right to the top. So they had an interest in not letting the legal system dig further into their business as well, since the plans were this far in motion, literally in motion the day of when these things were supposed to be filed. Stephen wasn't just an attorney looking back on a case. He was Dan's friend. He knew his routines, his priorities, his fears. And when he learned that Dan had been executed in broad daylight on the very morning their filings were ready, his gut told him the truth. Was it them? It's a question one has to ask. To him, the filings were the spark. The Adelsons saw what was coming, and they acted before the ink could hit the page. The state's case against the Adelsons has always centered on motive: the bitter custody battle, the desire to bring the boys to Miami, the resentment of Dan's refusal to cooperate. But you don't have to cooperate with something that's going to take your children away from you. That's not cooperation. That's not refusal to cooperate. That's holding your own. That's saying, no, I'm good. What we have in place is what I'm following. Moving my children away from me? No. The idea of refusal to cooperate almost makes Dan, in some ways, feel like he's not participating. He's not playing along. And to a certain extent, sure. But you don't have to play along with someone that's rewriting the rules of the game. And Dan had every right to say, I'm not going to cooperate in you retooling the rules of this so I can have less time with my children and you can say horrible things about me to them. But in the world of the Adelsons, that's A-OK. It wasn't just about long-term frustration. It was about the day, that filing, the legal blow that was about to land. And that makes the murder even more chilling. It wasn't abstract. It wasn't delayed. It was allegedly a preemptive strike to stop the legal system from taking control away from them. Webster now runs a law firm in Tallahassee with Luis Baptiste, one of Dan's former students. Outside his office, the sign reads, "Justice for Dan." For Webster, this case will never be just another file in a cabinet. It was personal. It was the silencing of a friend, the destruction of a family, and the corruption of justice by arrogance and entitlement. And for the Adelsons, the irony is brutal. The filings they allegedly feared never reached the judge's desk, but their desperation to stop them only deepened the case against them. The evidence, the wiretaps, the convictions, all of it stems from that single morning when fear of losing control drove them to murder. Dan Markel's children grew up without their father. His colleagues lost a scholar. His friends lost a confidant. And Stephen Webster lost a client whose fight was cut short before it could be heard. The paperwork that never reached the court may be gone, but its shadow lingers. It represents the fork in the road between legal combat and criminal conspiracy, between fighting for custody and plotting for murder. And it raises the most haunting truth of all. Dan Markel was murdered not just for who he was, but for what he was about to do, for the papers he was ready to file, for the challenge he was ready to make. On July 18th, 2014, a father was silenced so his children could be controlled. And a family's obsession with power became their undoing. Tell me your thoughts in the comments section on YouTube. If you're not already there, search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski to find us. Let me know your thoughts. Obviously, like I said, Wendi, never been charged. She maintains her innocence. But we'll keep asking questions. I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
Obviously, the other, big red flag, other thing that's still, hanging off here are two more people. We got Wendi and we got Harvey and we got Georgia saying, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Let's start with Wendi. What new things came out in this trial, in this round, that may, push the everything over the edge for her, where they may end up going after her and charging her? Do you think there was enough that pushes it that far, or did they even need anything to come out in trial? They've just been sitting on it, waiting for this to wrap up.
I mean, it could be all those things. Like, honestly, there were definitely some new things that came in. I mean, even if you go to Luis Rivera, when in his testimony, I mean, his statement on the stand in this trial was different. I mean, he firmly hung it on Wendi. Which I'm sure Wendi didn't appreciate Donna's attorneys eliciting on the stand. Because she knew because she had the transcript. She had deposed him, so she knew that he was going to say that. And then you just had some other damning text messages come in. You have, there's things that came in that I think are going to be able to be used against her that aren't going to fall under the immunity deal that she has, which is use immunity and derivative use immunity. And, I've always been pessimistic about whether or not they had enough on Wendi alone, but it's always kind of been my theory, and it's the same thing that happened with Donna, is the fact that they now have the two hitmen, they have the go-between, they have the brother who set it up, and they have the mother who paid for it. That's all part of this narrative in a case against Wendi, and it's incredibly powerful, because the hardest thing for people to even try to reconcile, to get them to buy the concept that there could be a world in which Wendi exists and she has no fucking clue what these people are doing. Like, I get in the debates, and I love I love devil's advocating that side of it. You know, it's like like my buddy Jay, he's like obsessed with Wendi Adelson. And, you know, but I'm like from the defense attorney's perspective, these are the ways that I would attack these things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the way, like I said, when Georgia knocks down the dominoes and you have that backstory, and then again, you slide in these pieces of evidence, because her driving by the crime scene at a seemingly really inconvenient, inopportune time for Wendi, if you're worried about being arrested down the road, is damning. The fact that she's changing the kids' names, the fact that you have Lacoste, which to me was one of the bigger smoking gun things, talking about her pulling the art down 4 days before the hit takes place. It's like those types of things, again, in and of themselves alone, if I were to write them down on a piece of paper and said, hey, Tony, you think we should go prosecute this woman based on this evidence? You'd probably say, well, can we get more?
Well, yeah, I agree, but I wonder if Georgia has some more things under her sleeve that we don't know about yet. I would imagine
I'm
so.
Sure. I'm sure, you know?
Because there's so many things you look at here, and you just, with what's out there, you're kind of left with, Wendi knew something was going to happen that day. That feels like a pretty sure bet to me, that Wendi knew something was going to happen that day. What exactly was going to happen that day, I don't know that we know the answer to. Maybe George does. But as far as everything that's come out, it always kind of ends about there. She certainly, the way she was arranging plans, the way she was canceling trips, all of that, everything points to she knew something was going on. But what did she know was going on? And that's going to be the part that they're going to have to try and prove if, in fact, they do charge Wendi. Do you think charges are imminent?
Stacey, what do you think?
Thanks, Bob. My question is, what kind of immunity do you think she's been granted? Because she's shown up in every one of these trials, has she not?
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like, and I'm not in the legal field, but I feel like they've come to her and said, we've got some shit on you, girl. You got to talk. So how does that work? Can you explain that part?
Yeah, they've given her in each of the trials what they call use immunity. And use immunity is essentially that anything that she testifies to at trial cannot be used against her in terms of trying to convict her. So, and what derivative use immunity is say that she said something on the stand that was new. All right. That Georgia's like, oh, well, that's new. And then that particular piece of information leads them to something else in terms of evidence that is derivative of what she testified to. So they wouldn't be able to use that either. So, but like the main things, but Georgia's very, very smart.
Yes.
And she tailors her direct examinations of Wendi very, very carefully. And what she does is she has Wendi get up there and say these things so that, because Georgia doesn't care if she's going to go after Wendi can get up on the stand and lie all day. And Georgia, frankly, loves that, because that is sworn testimony when and if she arrests Donna and they're going to take her to trial. Everything she then testified to in all of the prior proceedings that are a lie can come in. Okay, so that like the lies are not covered by use immunity. So like that kind of thing is just, she's played this, and it's such a difficult case in terms of Wendi, because they really don't have that kind of smoking gun. They have some incredibly powerful and compelling evidence when you put it together in terms of the puzzle, right? Like, I mean, there's just some things with her that if you were to ask me, do I think that at this point in time that Georgia would be able to convince a jury that Wendi was absolutely a part of this? Yes, I do. I really do. And I was not there prior to Donna's trial. But as she keeps building these convictions up and just keeps fleshing out the full narrative, and just like little factoids, new factoids come out in every trial. And like you said, Tone, we have no idea what she knows about what she knows about Wendi and her involvement, because that kind of stuff doesn't come in at these trials.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how much she has been able to gather. Obviously, when she gets Donna's phone post arrest, and we heard her say it, her being Georgia, talking about when they got Donna's phone, you know, that they were able to get some of these WhatsApp discussions. So Georgia knows what she has. And she knows exactly, you know, what she needs to get this done. And she's probably going to take a breather. You know, I mean, she knows at this point, Wendy's got the kids. She's not gonna be able to go anywhere without the world knowing about it. Like, Wendi is under the microscope. So in terms of Georgia handling her other cases that she's got, you know, because Georgia's a busy prosecutor, she doesn't just have the Adelson case. She's got tons of cases that she has to deal with. So, you know, and you earmark that much time, and I'm sure she's consulting with the Markels, you know, and she's telling Ruth, she's like, look, you know, like, what is your time frame on this? I mean, are you good if I wait a year? You know, because everybody's like, oh, as soon as the trial's over, they're going to arrest her. I'm like, you just don't understand how this business works. It's like, Georgia's a very, very busy person. She's got many, many cases on her dockets. It can't, and the office is only so big. You know?
I mean, unless Wendi tries to flee, I don't think that's it's necessarily going to be this week. I don't remember a lie.
It's how do you remember lies? You know,
that because obviously that was half of her testimony.
No. Some people are very, very good at remembering lies. I got a family full of them.
I mean, but they're always going to make a mistake. Like, they might be able to remember, like a big lie. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't do this or I didn't do that. Fine. But when it's a lie where the devil's in the details, no one's that good at it. No one. I mean, you know what I'm saying, Stacey? You can, like, if it's a big lie, yeah, all right, you can remember that. But when it is a lie that has details to it and can be picked apart, and you start digging in on it, people just are not good with detailed lies. It's hard to remember it all.
So to all of the things that Wendi said, I don't remember on the stand, can that be looked at, or could certain things be looked at as a lie? If they can go back and go, well, look, you said right here, you knew the answer to this question, but on the stand, I mean, I could have said something last week and I don't remember I said it, and I could say I don't remember. And I could honestly be saying I don't remember saying that, even though you have evidence that I did. Is that then a lie, though, if you don't remember it when you're being directly questioned about it?
Only if you can impeach her on it that she actually did know the answer. You know, but like, time-wise, it has to be more current in time, because I think that there is absolutely a possibility that 11 years ago, shit that was going down that she doesn't remember.
Sure. Legitimately.
You know? So, you know, I mean, I can barely remember. Like, if you were to ask me what I ate last Tuesday, there's not a chance in hell that I'd be able to remember it. Now, the counter to that is, okay, well, Bob, you weren't, you know, in the commission of having somebody murdered. So, like, that was just a nondescript thing that you did. But I mean, the one thing to me that is somewhat evident is that whatever involvement that Wendi had in this conspiracy, that she certainly wasn't a major player in it in terms of the planning. That seemed to be taken care of by her loving brother and her loving mother. And, you know, so I think that there's this aspect of, because I hope we're going to get into some Jeff LaClasse thing. Like, some people are like of the mindset that, like, Jeff, they really like this, that she was trying to set him up as the patsy type thing. And I know Jeff believes that, but and I believe a vast majority of what Jeff says, but I also am cognizant of the fact that Jeff is a man scorned, you know, so you have to factor that in a little bit. Do I think that he was so scorned that he's going to go in there and make shit up? Absolutely not. But do I think that skews the way that he's observing things because he was hurt by her.
Sure.
Yes, of course. I mean, things like she took the pictures down.
What blows me away about the whole idea that they were going to try and frame Jeff for the murder of where were you that day and all that. It just seems so short-sighted. Now, I mean, keep in mind, these are the people who put money in the washing machine with Tide Pods. So anything is possible. They don't seem like the wisest bunch of folks. But if you're going to go and commit a murder, I would think you're going to kind of have your alibi plan or your scapegoat or who you're going to blame for this when people come questioning you. If you're going to say anything, and it's not just going to be, well, it turns out your boyfriend drove by there the other day. Let's just say he did it. I mean, that just seems to be the thick of what their alibi was going to be if they could have gotten the attention over to Jeff Lacasse.
Yeah, I mean, that's where my problem is with the whole Jeff Lacasse thing. It's like that. It's either the shittiest alibi of all time. I can't make it.
But they laundered money in the washing machine.
Yeah, like, I mean, she's a very literal woman, Tony. She takes everything literally. But like for the Lacasse thing, I mean, so he's supposed to be traveling out of town. And they're trying to just coordinate it. They think that it's going to be enough at any point in time that he just happened to be in the area of where this thing went down.
Stupid.
Stunningly stupid. And what's his motive?
Yeah.
She's already divorced from Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Dan already he's in a different relationship with a different woman. Like what about the situation in and of itself makes Wendi, Charlie, and Donna think that the cops would think that he was a person of interest, aside from him being in town?
I 1000% agree with you. But these are also the people that think no one's going to be the wiser when she's running money through the washing machine, signing 44 checks. All the bump, everything, the litany of shit that you're like, well, this is obvious shit. Like, come on. Like, if you're going to do this, let's at least not, completely, put ourselves out there and show our guilt. There's so much of it. I mean, it's stunningly stupid, but they have been stunningly stupid throughout this entire thing.
Dude, I mean, everybody says that, and it's true, but it's really hard to get away with a crime like this.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yes, dude, it's like easy for us to all.
Oh, sure. I'm sure.
Monday morning quarterback.
It's like they didn't even try. It just feels like they didn't even try. It's just like
they got away with it for 2 years before they were able to figure out the rental car situation. And then there's a long passage of time where they kind of in their minds, because when you listen to the bump shit and you're listening or you're reading, either the text or the conversations between Charlie and Donna after the bump happens, and you're sitting there and Charlie's it takes him a half an hour to fucking for it to even dawn on him that his mother's talking about this thing that happened with Dan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're listening to, because you can read it when they were showing the transcripts of it, where he the light goes off in his head. I mean, they were I think that they honestly thought that they had somehow gotten away with this.
Well, the investigation, yes, it certainly did take a long time to get from where they started to where they are today. But is that a reflection because the Adelsons were that good, or is that because the investigation was that slow or that bad? Or did it have the resources that it needed to make this move faster? I mean, what is it a reflection of, really?
I certainly don't think it's a reflection on a bad investigation. I mean, this is, frankly, cases are hard to solve. You know what I mean? Like this is we're not talking about movies here where shit's every clip. They essentially had to be able to figure out, in terms of using the video of when Dan is driving around, and they're able to pinpoint this fucking Prius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, because really that was it. You know, because they talk to everybody initially. You know, they're obviously in the way that victimology works when they're investigating a crime, they start always from the inner circle and work their way out in concentric circles. You know, I mean, they're always going to, because usually you're killed by somebody you know. Sure. You know, so they're always going to start in there. So in terms of the investigation, I thought that they did amazing work. Yeah. And like I can't tell you how much I love the concept of the bump, because it's exactly what that is. You know, we're giving this thing a little bump. We need to get these fucking people talking about this case again. Yeah. And it was really an ingenious way to entrap them into like talking about this case, you know, with one another. They needed too much time had passed. And that was such a little, you could have called it the nudge. Right. I'm like, wait, are they doing key bumps of cocaine? What's going on? You know, or so. Yeah, I think that it was ultimately just a case that they needed to investigate, and it was going to take time. And then once they got Luis, once they were finally able to figure out who rented that car, which is a lot of legwork. You're watching all the videos from all the businesses and all the areas that Dan was driving. You have your like writing down and you're trying to see what type of car it is. You're doing your best to try to figure out the year, make, model, all that shit in otherwise pretty grainy videos. And then at that point, you're going to do what they always do, which is go to rental car companies. If you've got a situation where you're thinking, all right, this appears to be random in the sense that we don't think that any of the family members are the ones who pulled the trigger. I don't think that Jeff was ever actually on their radar at all. I think that he was a person that they wanted to talk to for various reasons, you know, but I think he was checked off the list very, very quickly after his interview. So at that point, they're thinking, all right, you know, and like Wendy's shit in her interview, we're like, yeah, there could be a lot of people who want to kill Dan, like anybody you may give an F to in law school, or, you know, and you can't dismiss it. I mean, I had a client named Anthony Garcia that was fired from his, you know, his residency in law and medical school, and he came back. He's convicted of coming back and killing 7 years later, killing the two people that fired him. So people do fucking insane things. So I mean, I guess in their minds, but eventually you land on, we're going to go to all the rental car companies. We're going to find out which ones had Priuses or vehicles that looked very similar to it and are similar in color, and get a list of all the people that rented those vehicles. So, I mean, they had a lot of legwork to do, and they did it well. And, you know, the problem is that for some of the early conversations, you're just never going to get them because they're just not going to exist anymore. You're not going to have the devices to be able to do the extractions, and it predates like everything going up into the cloud the way that it does now. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no way they were going to be able to get back the potential smoking gun stuff that was taking place at the time when they were trying to get it done. Because I mean, at that point, all they had was really Wendy's phone. Yeah. You know, and we all know that Wendi was at least smart enough to stay the fuck out of the fray in terms of the conversations.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.